Can you hear me, Jim?
I sure can, Charlie. How are you? Happy New Year.
Just Happy New Year to you too. Brenda, Colleen, Gerald, and whoever else is there. Oh, I know who it is. It's Mr. Gillis. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you again, Jer. Is that Doug Lang down there too?
Yes, Happy New Year, Charlie.
Happy New Year, Doug. I'll try not and ask you really tough questions today.
That'll be good.
Yeah, good to see everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Brenda. You're muted.
You're muted, Brenda.
Guess what, Charlie? My son Elliot is home from Ottawa, and he went to school with your daughter Kim.
Yes, I know.
Elliot's upstairs. I just made him some killer grilled cheese and ham and some tomato soup. Yeah, he's
Geez, I
upstairs.
wish I had somebody to make me sandwiches like that.
Yeah, it's really good. Keep me going till the end of the day.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's his family doing?
He's not got a family. He's got a girlfriend.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah. He's doing well. Yeah, he's managing a big winery in Ottawa.
Oh yeah.
Called Magnatus, and so he's getting called by the employees asking him questions off and on today.
Yeah. Well, did he bring you a big supply of wine home for Christmas?
No, he doesn't actually drink. Like he's been drinking my cranberry ginger ale most of the time, or tea or coffee. He doesn't drink. He sees people drinking, that come in, line up outside his store in the morning.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to get addicted. He's pretty smart, that kid.
Yeah. He's sort of like Brad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Knock.
Doesn't drink, okay?
I don't have my gavel. Knock, knock.
Knock.
Bang, bang, gavel. Down.
Who's
Thank
there?
you. Good afternoon, directors and staff. The regional board meeting for January the 12th. I'd like to acknowledge that I and we are here in the boardroom on the traditional territory of the Lac-Takan people. With that, I have confirmation of quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. And can I have adoption of the public agenda, please?
Move adoption.
Second.
Lee and Baker.
Discussion?
Any
Discussion?
additions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So I'm not sure if you already have them from what Dave said earlier, but I have two motions just about changing dates. And I'm not sure where they will come in, but if nowhere else, I guess under new business.
Yeah, it'd be under new business. And we do have your
Okay.
stuff.
Okay, great.
Move adoption of the public agenda as amended.
Second.
Joe, call question? Anyone opposed? Carried. At this time, petitions and delegations, Cam River Community Foundation. We'd like to welcome Craig Gillis and Doug Lang from the Cam River Community Foundation, make a presentation regarding publication of vital sign. Good afternoon, gentlemen. And as normal, our presentations are 10 minutes. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just need a little guidance in terms of using Teams here in order to share a PowerPoint that I have on my laptop. Do I just go to start sharing?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Okay. And I request control, is that?
Yes, that's correct.
And now I'll just, okay, and I'll just, apologies.
No problem.
Okay, play from, are you seeing a picture of Vital Signs 2018 on your screen?
No, we're
Not
not.
yet.
There should be a little square, white square with an arrow up, and that's the share content icon.
Yeah, and that's what I just used.
And once you select that, you can select your PowerPoint presentation, and then that should do it.
Okay, let me see what, I'm going to end show here and try this again. Sorry, I'm on slideshow, but I guess I have to go back towards. Yeah. Well, I believe that Edith has that has the presentation there.
I do have your presentation. I'll pull it up.
So Edith, let's just go ahead with that. If we could have you control that, that would be wonderful.
Okay, it's up. We're
Great. Thank
go.
you so much. My apologies for the delay, and we'll begin with Doug.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon, directors and staff of Strathcona Regional District. We are Doug Lang, that's myself, and Craig Gillis representing the Campbell River Community Foundation. The term community refers to the greater Campbell River District in that our boundaries are aligned with those of School District 72, from the Oyster River to Sayward, including Quadra, Reed, and Cortez Islands.
And our next slide shows you a photo of our amazing current board, some of the finest community volunteers that you could ever meet. And hopefully in that group, there are a face or two that you recognize, because we're very proud to work together with this board of 15 volunteers as community builders. Next slide.
Before we introduce the initiative that brings us before you today, Vital Signs 2022, we will provide some information about our history and purpose as a community foundation. We've been in existence since 1990, due in large part to the vision of then Mayor Robert Osler and Councillor Mary Ashley. With purposeful steps, we have gradually increased our legacy funds to about 3.2 million, the interest of which is annually distributed to nonprofit organizations and cultural groups that provide enrichment.
And in our next slide, we want to just affirm that in many cases, our purpose is to create a permanent endowment fund. We're about to take on what we hope is going to be a giant step forward with the hiring of our very first executive director, whose chief role will be to build our profile and increase our endowment fund. We also seek to provide resources for other community groups, and that is what really underscores the significance of Vital Signs 2022.
We would encourage you to visit our soon-to-be revamped website that provides information for potential donors and showcases past grant recipients. It even has been a very handy tab that will take visitors to our Vital Signs 2016 and 2018, our first two publications.
Now, if there's a single message that we would like you to take with you when you leave the meeting today, is that our mandate is helping people help others. We truly believe that by growing this endowment fund, we are able to support other organizations within our greater community.
And so now, with an appropriate imaginary drum roll, we will tell you a little more about Vital Signs and why we hope it is a project that will garner your enthusiastic support and funding. You will see before you the covers of our first two Vital Signs. In short, we know that Vital Signs has proven to be a valuable resource. We have worked with a skilled facilitator, Maggie Hodge-Kwan, who brings together focus groups representative of our broader community and interests and collates available government data, administers surveys, and ultimately designs the presentation of the information, Vital Signs 2022.
And what we're probably most excited about in this third publication is it's going to give us an opportunity to compare data. Just as an example, you see before you the Village of 100, a glimpse of Campbell River in 2016 and 2018. And we know that 2022 is going to reflect some significant changes when we start to compare that data.
At this point, we intend to use these 13 lenses when gathering impressions of areas served by the Campbell River Community Foundation. We will give you a moment to pause and scan, and then share a few examples of how some of the information has been presented in previous editions of Vital Signs.
So we'd like to begin with our first example, and this slide shows you the income gap. And it reflects the growing needs, particularly in the vulnerable sectors of our community. Many government and grassroots agencies are working towards addressing some of our most glaring needs. And with such change in our population, particularly in these last few years, we anticipate comparative data will reveal a pretty compelling community story.
It doesn't take long in surveying the greater Campbell River area to recognize that this is a building boom era. Home prices have attracted new faces to the community in surprising numbers. And with that has emerged new challenges, substantial and affordable housing for all. Topics like this warrant a couple of pages so that we can do justice through the numbers to what is occurring in our home community.
And I think, as we are all aware, issues such as homelessness bring a complexity that'll require strategies, teamwork, and of course, resources. Vital Signs bring some numbers to our attention, numbers that can provide an honest but sometimes startling picture.
Another important focus is children and youth, defined as 19 and younger. If we truly believe our youth are our future, it becomes important to understand what supports and opportunities we offer them in these formative years. In all honesty, sometimes the numbers don't reveal what we would hope, but that gives us a base foundation from which to work.
Finally, we are reminded that the quality of a community is often judged by how it treats its seniors and its youth. And it's interesting to note that our seniors, judged as 65 plus, are basically an equivalent number to our youth, those 19 and under. As you know, many organizations are working diligently in the greater Campbell River area to provide care and support as we boomers enter into this next life chapter.
Which brings us back to the ask. There's always an ask, but we do this believing that Vital Signs 2022 will be critical to our understanding of our current regional community. Our budget for Vital Signs 2018 was approximately $25,000. And we recognize there'll be increased costs. We project a $30,000 budget.
So this was just a sampling of those 13 areas of focus for Vital Signs 2022. And I bring us back to the awareness that the Campbell River Community Foundation not only shepherds legacy funds, but provides resources such as Vital Signs so that other organizations can benefit from the knowledge and the insight gathered in this publication and use it wisely to make decisions that impact lives. We know that COVID has left a deep imprint, and we believe that Vital Signs 22 will surface some very important understanding. We're all proud to call this area home. We're united in our efforts to improve the quality of life for all who share this community. And we truly believe that through partnerships and collaboration, we can continue helping people help others. Any assistance from the Strathcona Regional District would certainly be genuinely appreciated.
Thank you, and we would be pleased to take any questions you may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I have a list of questions. Director Anderson, Evans, and Lee. So Director Anderson, you're first.
Hello, and thank you for your presentation, but more importantly, your great work. I appreciate it. I've been watching and supportive of the development of the Cortez Community Foundation for the last number of years, and I know you've been supportive with information, and I thank you for that, as well as some funds to the community. And so my question is really around the regionality of your nature. I know that Kemba River Foundation has a scope, as you say, the school district wide. And so with your vital signs, is the information presented there information from the city or from the whole region? And if it's from the whole region, are you able to break it out into different communities? Because clearly there'd be very different profiles for different communities. And if not, is that something that perhaps the rural areas could support, or indeed the Cortez and a now established new Quadra Community Foundation, perhaps could they fund a little bit extra to have that level of individual community breakdown? Because that would be very useful. Thank you.
Great question. I spent about an hour and a half with Manda yesterday from the Cortez Community Foundation, and I have spoken to Maggie Hodge Kwan. And it is a general, as we say, our community area includes, in essence, our school district area. And Maggie feels that in order to drill down with very specific, discrete community needs, she would have to do probably an ancillary type of investigation or survey. But it's certainly possible, and I've given Maggie Hodge-Kwan's information so that they can have further discussion about that. By the way, we're very excited about the idea of a Quadra and a Cortez. We all almost feel kind of like parents who have given birth, you know, because this is this wonderful opportunity to reach out into more, I think, specific needs within communities. So very exciting.
Yeah, so then rather than divest sort of us, if you could become that parent and provide overarching information that would be more specifically valuable, that would be grand. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. And Director Evans.
Thank you. And thank you, Craig and Doug and all the members of the Community Foundation. It's incredible how the foundation has grown over the last few years. It's just so great to hear that. I think you said 3.2 million is where we're at. And I know nonprofit organizations really count on the type of distribution of funds that you have from earned interest from your endowment every year. That's just so important to be able to have that distribution in our community. I also think it's so valuable for our nonprofit organizations to be able to access this kind of data to help them in their grant applications and, as you say, just help them in the work that they do. So I just want to thank you. Vital Signs to me is just a critical document to help support us in seeing how our community is changing. My question for you, I understand that you are doing a revamp of the website. And so with the type of data collection that you're going to be doing, showcasing the various vital signs reports and maybe some additional community information, does the foundation envision that there would be sort of a trend report? You've been doing this now for over 5 years. Does the foundation ever do sort of like a 5-year higher trend report, or will it continue to be these annual or semi-annual types of reports?
Doug, would you like to address that?
I can to a degree, and you can fill in the spots that are missed. At this point, we haven't developed what I think you're asking for, other than there is some comparative information that occurs in the vital signs. So in a sense, you'll be able to compare to some degree, but you know, each report obviously stands on its own, and it's the current information is the key thing. But there are statistics there, like the children and youth. We're quite interested in seeing what's shifted there, or even in the homeless population is another area that I know is high on the community agenda as to what's happening there. So I think that the information that's going to be coming out of here is going to be exceedingly valuable to a number of community groups, including the regional district and the city.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. And then just a final question, if I may. I saw in your presentation there was an ask for $3,000. Was that specific for the regional district? And your budget was 30. I think you said your current funding is at a level of 13K. Maybe can you just clarify again, was this specific ask and is that where the amount is? There just seems to be a bit of discrepancy between what you currently have and what the ask is.
Yeah, if I may, Craig, the 3,000 is specific to Strathcona Regional District. As you know, the city's very generously contributed $10,000, but we're looking, because the report is broad beyond the boundaries of the city. We're asking that the regional district come along and be a supporter as well.
And so just to say, if it was $3,000 that the regional district gave you, that is adequate for where your funding needs are, or do you still have to collect another 11,000?
We still have to collect more. Go ahead, Craig.
I was just going to say we have several asks out.
Okay.
So we'll be better able to answer that question in a short while. But we've got a number of organizations that are certainly reviewing at this time our requests, and we're quite optimistic that we should be able to meet our funding needs.
Okay, once all of the questions are over, I'd be happy to make a subsequent motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Director Lee.
Thank you, and thank you guys for your presentation. I tend to want to give Area D residents grants and aid directly from Area D rather than through a Campbell River Foundation. I find that the money doesn't really trickle out to the rural areas as much. We do have an association called the Oyster River Community Association, ORCA, and they got $10,000 a few years ago to get started, and they have run a food bank at the former school at Oyster River, and they have preschool and after school care at Oyster River. We haven't had a lot of support from the school district insofar as they closed 2 out of 3 of our schools. So we have there's a bit of an attitude in Area D that we're not going to get support from Campbell River. We have to make our own way. And I prefer personally to grant them funds from Area D directly than rely on any Campbell River Foundation to do so. Sorry that I'm so brutally honest, but that's the way I am. I also feel a little reticent about the idea that you have more than $3 million in the bank in a legacy fund, but you're asking us for $3,000. I mean, we had an application a while ago from the Tides Foundation who had more than $2 million in the bank, and they were asking us for a couple thousand. And like, decisions on grants and aid should be made based on need. Like, it's supposed to be based on the need of the organization. And if you have more than $3 million, where's the need? So I don't know why you're not spending it on, say, some of the social problems downtown Campbell River, for example. Because I go downtown to the library quite often and I see what's going on downtown, and I'm just like, I can't believe it's happening in that town. So why isn't the legacy money being opened up to help the real problems that exist in Campbell River?
And if I could just, Brenda, and I certainly appreciate that perspective, but we do want to make it very clear that the grant funds, which come from the annual interest on that legacy fund, are available to any organizations within our greater Campbell River School District area. So we really encourage people to apply for those. This year, the Campbell River Community Foundation, well, in the last 2 years, we helped to mount a campaign within the community, and we're able to, with not only government money, but local donors' money, we were able to administer close to $300,000 that went directly back to organizations within our greater community that were impacted by COVID and impacted by a lot of the vulnerability that we've seen. So I don't know if that helps, but it just, it is the reality, and we're really working towards a day when we will have many, many dollars, but it takes time to build that legacy fund.
Great, thank
3
you.
million is nothing to sniff at, though. You have 3 million, so that's a lot of money. Should start spending it on the problems that exist.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation, Doug and Jerry. That's, the Doug and Jerry show. Anyway, it's, I think you guys do an awesome job. As you probably know, I'm an approving officer for one fund that we had created on fisheries, and we approved a grant to Ori's last year, which is in Area D, to support their Oyster River Enhancement Society efforts on fish stock. So the money gets spread around the community. I believe strongly that an endowment fund that only spends the interest, more people will contribute to a fund like that that keeps on giving year after year after year. Anyway, keep up the good work. My question to you is, the city of Campbell River contributes roughly 70% of the contributions from SRD. We've already contributed 10 towards it. For those people also on our board, but not from Campbell River, it's a good leverage of your dollars, because for every dollar you spend, Campbell River puts in, well, whatever that percentage is, but it's a good deal. So for a small amount of money, for all of us to contribute to that, which benefits, well, say 90% of the area or 90% of the population. I know it doesn't include the West Coast, but for the most part, it is a good investment, and it's a good investment to the benefit of all our communities. So I would, I believe Councillor or Director Evans is going to make a subsequent motion, which I will definitely be supporting. So thanks once again, and yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions. So on receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And Director Evans?
Yes, thank you,
Just 1
Chair.
sec, please.
Director Moglove, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest as I am on the board of directors of the Community Foundation. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Claire. Go ahead, Director Evans.
Thank you. And I'd like to make a motion that the SRD contribute $3,000 towards the 2022 vital signs.
Second.
Thank you. Director Cornfield, thank you.
And if I may, just speaking again, I think it's already been covered very well by the speakers, but just speaking in favor of this motion that vital signs contains information that I think really helps to demonstrate how communities are changing, which include many of the communities sitting on the SRD, but it's also highly accessible. There's no fee charged. It will be online. So again, it's just a very accessible document, which really will help our communities in looking at data collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Evans. I don't see any further questions. I'll call a question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you very much, Craig and Doug. And we'll carry on with the agenda. Can I have adoption of the minutes for regular meeting for December the 8th, please?
Move adoption?
Second.
Director Lee, Director Cornfield. Any errors, omissions? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Hearing none. No public considerations. No notice of motion. Excuse me, chair's report. Got a couple little things I'd like to say. Just to start off, I guess it's one way to start 2022 with the weather throughout our regional district. This last couple of weeks, snow, rain, freezing rain, more snow, power outages everywhere within the regional district, but nowhere near as it was in Tassos and Zabelis. No power there for several days, road closures, etc. Looking online and a couple of messages back and forth to Mayor Davis and Mayor Colburn. We reached out to see what we could do, as I know all the residents did in each of the communities. And that's how North Islanders do it. We band together and get the job done. So I want to say hats off to Mayor, Director Davis, Mayor and Director Colburn. Great job with your communities. And I hope everybody in the community gets a little bit of rest now. Now we see the rain coming. Hopefully it doesn't come too fast. And the other one I want to just say reach out to is our Protective Services Coordinator, Sean Koopman. It's an outstanding job, Sean, so thank you very much. 10 months left on our remaining term, working together here on our strategic priorities. So all I can say is let's roll up the sleeves, let's get our work done. Happy New Year to everybody, and let's move forward. Thank you. Any discussion? Director Abram.
Mr. Chair.
Director Abram, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I too, echo your comments. And to all of the communities and all of the First Nations communities that work together out there to try and keep everybody warm and fed and dry and whatever else. But I also think that we as a board should give a special shout out to BC Hydro for the incredible work that they had to do in the most unbelievable weather that they probably experienced maybe in their careers. And they got it done. And I think that, we so often forget about the fact that the service providers are actually out there all night in the dark and busting their butts in the cold, trying to keep us in survival mode. So I just like to thank BC Hydro publicly, and hopefully that will get off to them somehow. Maybe a letter from the chair on behalf of the board to thank BC Hydro for what they did on this rebuild, because basically it wasn't a repair, it was a rebuild of the transmission lines into those communities. And they really do deserve some accolades for that.
Thank you, Director Abram. And Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I'd also like to echo those comments to thank BC Hydro, and Sean Koopman did an amazing job. My community pulled together, and I know there was a lot of exhaustion at the end because we went pretty much a full week without power, and we saw help from many places. I know Grieg Seafood brought in 1,500 liters of diesel fuel, so we'd like to thank them for that. Western Forest Products actually brought in several truckloads of firewood yesterday because a lot of people were running low on firewood because it's been such a cold winter there. And it was great to see the community pull together, and I'd like to thank our paramedics and our staff and Public Works for keeping things running because they literally had to use generators to run the pumping stations for sewage, those sort of things. And yeah, everybody's exhausted at the end, and I hope that's the end of it. We're going to be looking into what we can do to prevent some of these issues in future because our generators are getting quite old, and we're going to have to do something about that, try and get some grants to, you know, keep things running there. But anyway, I'd like to thank everybody.
Great, thank you, Director Davis. Seeing nothing else, I'll call. Go,
Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Thank you. I'd also like to maybe send a separate letter to Main Road, to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure regarding the excellent service that Main Road Contracting has provided to the areas outside in the provincial Ministry of Transportation jurisdiction. I was so impressed with Main Road. If if my constituents had a medical problem and they needed to have their road cleared, these people worked around the clock. And we didn't have, in Area D, we didn't have the extended electrical problems because we have a substation on York Road that keeps us powered up. But we did have, the same amount of snow coming down, and it was brutal for people. And the people in my area pulled together. We shoveled out our elderly neighbors. We helped, everyone helped each other. But Main Road was a shining star. They were awesome. And I think we should send them a letter of thanks as well.
Okay, thank you.
Do I need to move that, or
No.
would you just do it?
We'll work on something.
Okay.
Okay, so I need motion to receive verbal report.
So moved.
Director
Second.
Wally,
Second.
Director Baker, thank you. Any further discussion? Call questions, anyone opposed? Carried. Next item, committee chair reports. Electoral Area Service Committee, motion to receive the report.
Move receipt. I'd
Second.
like to
And Lee,
move all three reports.
anything to add? On receipt, I'll call questions, anyone opposed? Seen none, carried. Item B, the draft minutes special budget meeting for November 23rd be received.
So moved.
Abram,
Moved.
Abram and Lee. No discussion. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item C, draft minutes for the meeting December 7th.
So moved, Abram.
Abram,
Second.
second by Director Lee. Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Next item, Strathcona Garden. Motion to receive the draft minutes of the November 3rd meeting.
Second.
Director Adams and Director Lee. Anything to add? Somebody's sink's running. Call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? See none, carried. And item B, that the minutes for December 10th be received.
Move receipt.
Second.
Adams and Lee. Any discussion? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 3, committee whole meeting. The draft minutes for the special meeting committee whole held on January 28th be received.
So moved.
Move receipt. Second.
Adams and Abram, I believe, or is it Abram and Lee? Thank you.
Abram,
And I'll go to CAO. Him yet? Nope.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Why does it take a year to get the minutes?
Up or not?
Go ahead, Director Lee.
I just wondered why it takes a year to get these minutes published.
Go
Like
staff.
these are a year old.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure. I would have to investigate that, but I suspect this is We do an audit every year of any minutes that have not yet been received, so this it may have merely been
Overlap.
captured through that audit. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Director Cornfield?
No, forget it.
It's all good? Okay. I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item L, management of garbage.
Turn your hand up, Brenda.
Pardon?
Oh, your hand's up, Brenda.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Okay.
Do this.
Okay, short reports. The first one, management of garbage highway rest stops. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, second.
Second, Evans.
Director Davis, and I'll go CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Wolf will speak to this for us.
Good afternoon through the CAO and the chair to the board members. This is a report regarding garbage management at highway stops. A little bit of history on this that started back in June 2021, where a request was made by the Commons Strathcona Waste Management Board to CBRD with regards finding ways and opportunities for placing garbage receptacles and garbage collections at places like trails, beaches, and more important, highways rest stops. So that investigation was done by the Commons Strathcona Waste Management Group down at CBRD. They provided a report and introduced this report to the board. They clarified the role and the core functions of the service. As well, they clearly mentioned that the service does not manage receptacles nor the collections of waste, that it is the responsibility of individual municipal or regional districts to actually deal with this. So we received recently a letter where they want the board to provide input and support so we can introduce this, or they can submit it to the Association of Vancouver Island Communities in a convention coming in 2022 with a proposed resolution that clearly is an opportunity for the Strathcona Regional District and the CBRD to advocate through ABICC to the Ministry of Transportation so they can coordinate with regional districts the placement of these receptacles and a way to actually manage the garbage at these locations. So that has been provided to us, and they want to have our input and want to have hopefully support so they can approach others and deal with this issue that seems like it's increasing, and it was brought up to them back in June.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the update. And I've got a couple questions. Director Adams first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Wolfgang, for the reports. I certainly appreciate and support the suggestion to draft a resolution to ABICC. However, I don't think this goes far enough. I think we should be clarifying that the maintenance of the highways, rest stops, and garbage is the responsibility of BC Highways and Parks, and it's their function, their responsibility. And I think we should be pushing that through ABICC to have the province not sort of abdicate on their responsibility and just shuffle it off to local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. And Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. And I will echo what Director Adams said. I don't think it says it nice and succinctly and clearly of what's required. And in my opinion, those rest stops along provincial highways are provincial highways responsibility. They're not the responsibility of local government, either the SRD or at least regional districts or cities, municipal governments. So I don't support something that doesn't put the onus back on them. And I've been a resident for a long time. I remember in 1958 when highways came out with the garbage gobbler. And garbage gobblers were custom designed to deal with the garbage problem back in 1958. That's 60 some odd years ago, 63 years ago. And that was a very, very successful program. And yet now it just sits there, garbage builds up, mounds up, and everything else. And just because somebody else doesn't want to look after their responsibility doesn't mean to say that we have to take it on.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield and Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support beefing up the recommendation to AVICC to make sure that MOTI is responsible for highway rest areas and beach accesses along the highway. Their current policy, though, whenever I've talked to the manager of highways, is that their policy is to only service rest areas that are 15 kilometers apart. And I was always trying to get them to restore the garbage receptacles at Stories Beach. And they said, no, because we already have a rest area at Oyster Bay, which is like 7.5 kilometers away from Stories Beach. And it doesn't fit our policy. So even though we used to pick up garbage at Stories Beach, we're not doing it anymore. And they just let the garbage blow around on the beachfront. And it's one of the most attractive tourist destinations on the North Island. That beach is packed with 200 people a day. And I have, Area D supplies porta potty. And so in total frustration of getting batted back and forth between, because I raised this issue at the solid waste, I was looking for somebody to help. Our Parks Department, learning from the upshot of the raising it at the solid waste program, was that the Parks Departments in the Comox Valley do look after some of their beach accesses and parks, garbage collection. And so our Parks Department has now put in a small, little tiny receptacle next to our porta potty. And it's better than nothing, but it's still not adequate to deal with the summertime influx of tourists and whatnot that come to that beach. So I think that we need to get the government, provincial, to change the policy for MOTI to make them responsible for their properties, like Stories Beach parking lot that they own, to make sure garbage gets picked up.
Okay, thank you. And Director Evans.
Yes, thank you. And I think my fellow directors have conveyed the need to really be much more direct with what the recommendation is. Even in that first sentence where it talks about maintaining, they're responsible. It's not just about maintaining, but they're responsible to maintain it. And I think the onus has to go back on MOTI. I absolutely support Dr. Evans, Director Adams, and Cornfield in their comments. And certainly Director Lee has spoken about this and the impact on her particular region. My only question is the timing of this, because in this report, it does ask that there be a quick turnaround time. Is it possible for staff to develop a more direct resolution within the time frame that is being requested? And what other information do staff need in order to do that?
Well, certainly staff could. I mean, if we can gather the comments and information here as we go through the directors, and certainly try and translate that into a stronger resolution if that's the will of the board.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other first-time speakers? If not, Director Cornfield.
Just in support of doing something a little different. I think there's a big difference between policy and legislation. They have the legal responsibility. They're the landowner. If we wanted to use those particular areas for our purpose, we'd have to jump through hoops like crazy. They're the ones that are responsible. We've got to hold them accountable. So any amendment that makes it much clearer, and request the government to amend the policy, or just to get rid of the policy completely, and revert back to maintaining those areas, I think is very clear. If it's not supported by AVICC, I'm sure someone would move an amendment anyway. So, but I think we need to come in strong.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up on receipt, so I'll call question on receipts. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And do I have a subsequent?
Well, if nobody else is gonna, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll go to CEO first. Hang on.
So a couple things we could do. We could wordsmith the subsequent here, or you could leave it with staff and the chair to create something that's clearer and stronger, and with the approval of the chair, we can submit it.
Director Adams.
Line for submission.
Director Adams, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just make the motion to refer this back to staff to reformat and bring back for the next board meeting for consideration, taking into consideration the comments made by the directors.
Second.
Second, again, just a time frame on that.
Next meeting. I said the next meeting,
Yeah,
Councillor.
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moved in second. Any further discussion? Director
Yes,
Abram?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So what we're referring back to staff to bring something back to us, is it just the reddish colored highway rest stop amenities portion
Yes.
of this report?
Yes.
Okay, because, you know, when you look at that, it's not really to the point of what it is we're asking them to do. It's first of all, you know, I think Director Cornfield mentioned the word maintain versus something else, and I believe that's, I agree with that. They don't maintain them, first of all. They are responsible for them. They own them. So yeah, they should be dealing with them. But the bottom clause, if you look at it, it's basically talking about including local governments, regional districts, municipalities, to identify additional locations and provincial highway amenities to be established. That doesn't say to me, pick up the garbage at the existing rest stops and beach accesses. It just doesn't. It basically says, let's get together and have a nice little conflab about where we might need another rest stop somewhere along the road. Well, we went through this with the CSRD for probably about 10 years to get that one down by Union Bay. So I think we need to home in on what's the ask here. And I think the ask is for them to take care of the existing infrastructure that they own and pick it up.
Correct.
I just want to get that off to staff.
Yep. Okay. And Director Mogulov.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm a little bit confused here. My understanding is that this draft resolution, the part that's in red, was something that was put together by the solid waste, the CVRD solid waste staff, and then sent to the SRD for comment. So my concern is the timing of all this. So if we postpone this to our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, the next board meeting of the solid waste is next week. So, and then we theoretically could miss the deadline for AVICC. So I'm just a little confused as to if I'm correct that this is actually going to theoretically be a resolution from the CVRD, not the SRD, or would it be both? And then the whole issue of the timing if we postpone for 2 weeks. I totally agree with comments in terms of beefing it up, et cetera, and saying, having an ask that is very specific and more pointed. But I think it's getting a bit muddied as to whose resolution this might be.
Okay, I'll go CEO first.
You're correct on the process. So this came from them to us for comment. We are to add our comments, rework it, and send it back to them. So our next meeting is, I believe, on the 26th. So the soonest we get to them is on the 27th. I don't know when their next solid waste meeting is. So I don't know how critical the timing of that resolution being there is. They said they wanted it back as soon as possible. So as soon as we could get a new resolution back to them, unless we do it today, would be the 27th.
So someone can remind me what the deadline is for resolutions for AVICC? I thought it was the end of January.
January
It
26th.
is, and that was why it's January the 28th is the resolution deadline. Sorry, Chair, I did have my hand up to answer that question earlier. That was why I was questioning the process for the next meeting, because my understanding is that this resolution is going to be put forward by the Solid Waste Management Committee. They are asking for our feedback. We do have the opportunity to make those amendments, but it is coming forward from Solid Waste Management. But January 28th is the deadline for AVICC resolutions.
Chair, as the mover of the motion, if I could make an adjustment to the suggested motion, and that is that the SRD submit the proposed resolution directly to AVICC and copy the Comox Strathcona Regional Solid Waste Board.
Second.
Mr. Chair?
Hang on. So Director Adams, can you please repeat that?
Thank you, Chair. It's to just make the amendment that the motion be made from the Strathcona Regional District direct to AVICC and copied to the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital Board. And if that is okay with the seconder, it is just so that we meet the timelines and we get something submitted. Thank you.
Okay, and the seconder was?
The seconder was me, Jim Abram.
Hang on. Director Cornfield was the seconder of the motion. Director Cornfield, are you okay with the changes? Director Cornfield.
Can I be the fallback seconder since I actually did second it?
Silence is acceptance. Okay. Mr. Yates says silence
All
is
right,
acceptance, so we accepted it. Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to be clear that I totally agree with Director Adams' comments, and I would have made the same ones. I had my hand up too. So the timing is crucial. We have to get it in before the AVICC deadline. And the only way we can do that is submit it ourselves. But we don't have to submit this as is.
Yeah.
We can wordsmith it as we have talked about and make it say the beefed up.
Point of order, Chair. That's exactly what the motion is to direct staff to amend the motion to reflect the discussion. Thank you.
So if I can, Mr. Chair, the timelines there would be that we'd bring back for the 26th, we'd agree on a resolution. The next day we would send it off to AVICC and meet the 28th deadline.
Thank you.
Okay, I was misunderstanding that we were actually going to amend it, not just send off what's already here.
No. Send it off.
My apologies.
Mr. Chair?
Director Lee.
Thank you. I think that we're totally entitled to put forward an SRD motion to AVICC by the deadline. I've written out a motion which encompasses some of the great comments made by directors regarding the fact that we cannot just address the rest areas, the network of rest areas, because there are beach accesses that are along Highway 19A that Ministry of Transportation owns and are responsible for. And we need to tell them that they need to look after these areas as well. So I have another motion that's a little different from the CSWM motion, but it would come from the SRD and it would specifically address our problem.
We're going to address the problem ourselves. That's the motion.
Okay, I've got a motion to address it ourselves. Do you want me to type it out?
Director Moglove.
Thank you. Just to be clear, Director Lee, what's on the table now is a motion by Director Adams to refer this draft resolution back to staff to beef it up in accordance with all the different comments that have been made by various directors. Bring that back to the SRD on the 26th, and then we will hopefully agree on the wording, and we, the SRD, will send it to AVICC as our own resolution. That is what's currently on the table, so I think that covers what your concerns are. I do have just one comment. I totally agree with this, doing this, but I think that next week when we go to the solid waste meeting, I think it's imperative that, I don't want us to look like we're usurping their process, but I think it's the whole timing of AVIC resolutions and meetings that causes us to want us to do this. Now, the Solid Waste Board may want to do their own resolution because there are directors in the Comox Valley that may have similar. And what will happen if they do their own, the two different resolutions will come together at AVICC and it'll work, if it works similar to UBCM, they'll sort of combine them to a certain extent. So I'm not too worried where the resolution comes from, as long as it's clear that we're not trying to usurp their process. It's a timing issue.
Great, thank you. On that, I'm going to call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed?
I had my hand up, Mr. Chair.
Just after you put your hand up after I call question.
Actually, I had it up before and it went down for some reason.
Director Abram, I'm sorry, your hand didn't come up till after I said question. Calling question on the motion. Is anyone opposed?
Mr. Chair, I'm sending in the motion I would have made if I could have. And the staff can take that in, they can take that into consideration when they write theirs.
Director Lee, I call question on the motion. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Now, do you have another subsequent motion you want to put on the table, Director
Yeah,
Lee?
my motion I'm putting in the chat, and I've got mostly done except for the therefore be it resolved. Whereas Modi owns a number of public beachfront properties along Highway 19A, and whereas Moti is responsible for these properties regardless of whether they are officially identified as highway rest areas or not, therefore be it resolved that AVICC support that Modi be requested to initiate garbage collection on all major beachfront destinations along Highway 19A.
Second.
Moved and second by Director Adams. Questions?
All I have to.
Director Abram.
Thank you. My hand's up, right? Okay, so all I wanted to say in the last round was that I totally agreed with Director Moglove in what she was saying, that it would maybe seem somewhat rude of us to be usurping them by putting in our own motion. They may see it that way. And that there's no reason why we couldn't give them notice at the meeting that's coming up in a week or whenever it is. Actually, it's, in a week, that we would just notify them of our intent to have a similar motion that is stronger than theirs, and just let them know that we're not trying to stop them, and they can still put a motion forward. And as Claire knows that I know, and she knows, and Colleen knows, that sometimes these motions do get combined at the bigger group.
Okay, so.
Got my hand up.
Thank you. Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. Before I move my motion, there was an ask in the correspondence attached to the report that we keep them posted. So I would like to just simply direction to staff when they're working on this motion that they contact CBRD as soon as possible to let them know what's going on, so they're not surprised. And I would move that Director Lee's motion be referred to staff for inclusion in the previous item.
Second.
I'll consider that as a friendly.
Okay.
And my motion is on the chat, the whole thing.
Director Lee, please wait until you're
Okay,
asked.
sorry.
Thank you. One sec.
So is it a friendly, Mr. Chair, or do you want a referral motion?
Okay. Okay, so I'll take that as a friendly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, is there any other discussion?
What's happening, this is referred to staff?
Yep. Call questions, anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. Item 2, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Bylaw Adjudication Proposal. Motion to receive the report.
So moved, Abram.
Abram and
Second.
Davis, thank you. And I'll go to CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom will speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is simply a notification from the Comox Valley Regional District, or rather Waste Management Board, that they intend to look at enacting a slightly different process for some of the bylaw contraventions or alleged contraventions for waste management within the region. As the report explains, this would bring a less formal approach to some of those processes, and they're seeking this board's input, if it wishes to provide that, with respect to those proposed changes. Thank you.
And I've hands up. Director Lee, your hand up from this one or previous?
No, it's previous, sorry.
Yep. Director Abram.
Yes, mine's up. I absolutely oppose this suggestion on the part of the Comox Valley Solid Waste Management people, because this is all one board, right? We're all covered by it. And I don't think that if we're talking about, say, setting up in a truckload of garbage on a logging road, that we should go and have an adjudication process with them as to how we're going to deal with it. I believe we have a process right now that says there'll be a fine. And I believe that's the way it should stay. People should be fined for breaking the law. And this adjudication thing, it basically just adds a whole level of bureaucracy to both of our regional districts, and we don't need that.
Okay, thank you. Director Moglov.
Yeah, thank you. I disagree with Director Abram on this one. I think this is a really good move because the criminal court system is bogged down in such a way that we probably can't get anything through anyway. This is a way to, as said in the report, to introduce economies of time and cost. And I think it's a much preferable system to the current system. So I do support option 1.
Thank you. I don't see any further hands up, so I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Director Moglov.
Yeah, I'll move option 1 that, I don't have it, just lost it for a second there, but option 1 that we advise the CBRD that it supports bylaw 687 as presented.
Have a second.
It's
Director
667.
Director Adams, thank you. Any further discussion?
I believe it's 667.
Yes, we got it. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any further discussion, and I'll call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed?
Abram.
Director Abrams opposed, thank you. Don't see anyone else. I'll call it carried, thank you. Next item under staff reports, cultural awareness training workshop. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, second.
Second.
Director Colburn, or Director Cornfield, sorry. And I'll go CAO.
It's mixed up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple things with this. First of all, I just want to point out that the dates that Tina has here, they were set some time ago. Obviously, there's some conflict and some issues with COVID in attendance, and we're well aware of that, and are going to change these dates. So don't anyone get too excited about the dates we have on here, because we have low expectations and know we're going to have to modify those. The second issue here is what complicates having training and workshops for us and holding committee of the whole meetings is that we have to go through the formality of the meeting. There has to be quorum, and there's a number of other issues that complicate it. So what we'd like to do is a couple things, is have a resolution that says that for this workshop, we'll pay the directors the meeting pay for attending that, and get the blessing from the board that we also modify the remuneration bylaw that we can accommodate for workshops, seminars, things like this that come up throughout the year without having to worry about holding committee of the whole meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on receipt? Director Cornfield?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
My hand was up for previous.
No problem. Thank you. I don't see any other hands for on receipt, so I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, the cultural awareness training workshops scheduled for early 2022 be held independently of committee of whole meetings, and directors be compensated the amount of $160 for each day's attendance in a workshop.
Move B.
Davis
Second.
and Cornfield, thank you. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item C, appropriate
Move
amendments.
C.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. Seconder,
Second.
Director Evans, thank you. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Thank you. Next item, annual report, 2021 Freedom of Information Record Request. Motion receive.
Move receipt.
Adams
Wally.
and Wally, thank you, and the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom will speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board may recall, when it passed the amendments to the Freedom of Information or Access Request bylaw, one of the requirements was for an annual report to aggregate statistically the activity, and so that's what this report attempts to do. There were a number of significant changes the board made to the previous bylaw, which do impact the number of requests, and we've seen that improve significantly from a staff perspective. We've got certainly fewer access requests when there's an application fee required. And you may notice by the numbers there that we've been fairly busy dealing with the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner as well. That is reflective of most of the costs associated with that. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So on receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 3, development permit application DP1C21. Motion to receive the report.
I'd like to move that
Abram,
this be referred back to the Electoral Area Services Committee.
Second.
moved in second. Go. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Under bylaws, bylaw 449, Royal Canadian Legion Sayward funding. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Wally,
Second.
Lee, and the CEO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
On receipt, call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, the bylaw 449 being a bylaw authorized entering into agreement respecting the use of community works funds be now introduced and read for the first time. Director Wally,
Second.
Director Lee,
Second.
any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, the rules be suspended for bylaw 449 and do second and third reading.
Move second and third.
Director Lee, second. Director Wally. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. And item D.
Move D, that bylaw 449 be returned for further consideration following written consent being received by the director from A.
Second.
Director Wally, Director Lee, thank you. Somebody's got some background noise coming on. Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Bylaw 2, number 450, revenue anticipation borrowing. Move to receive the report.
Receipt.
Wally and Evans and CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is annual borrowing bylaw that we bring forward just in case we run out of money before we see our income in the summer. Just for the board's information, I don't believe we've had to borrow any money in the past 5 years on this bylaw, but just in case.
Thank you. On receipt, call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item.
Move first reading.
Thank you. Director Lee, second.
Wally.
Director Wally. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item C, be given second and third reading. Director Lee, Director Evans. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item D, be finally passed and adopted. Director
Second.
Lee, Director Evans. Call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Correspondence, we have 3 items of correspondence.
Move items 1 through 3, Abram.
Second.
I think it was receive all 3, correct, Director Abram? Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Director Abram, Director Wally. Any discussion?
I'd like to pull 3.
Okay, number 3 is pulled. Okay, so I'll call question on correspondence 1 and 2. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item 3, accessibility requirements for local government. Director Anderson?
Receive.
Motion receive. Seconded.
Second.
Director Lee. And discussion.
Yeah, I just noted in here that there was a requirement to establish a committee and develop a plan, and I just wondered, were staff going to be coming back with something further on this, or did the board need to take some initial action at this time?
I'll go CO.
We would need direction from the board. There's no action being taken, as I understand it. Oh, Tom may know different.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe that this is basically ahead of the fact, so there will be coming shortly, I believe, further clarity on the requirements for local government, and I think at that time the board may wish to consider those questions.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. No members, no management, new business. Director Abram.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I have 2 items of business that are very timely. We need to deal with them today at this meeting because we have scheduled 2 public hearings in the next week. So my first motion, they're short. The motion reads, number 1, well, you've got it there in front of you. Due to the most recent Omicron variant outbreak of COVID-19, that the public hearing for the Shellink development scheduled for January 18th, 2022 be rescheduled to an available date in April 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Quad Island Community Center. All COVID protocols will apply.
Second.
Thank you.
Wally.
Director Abram, Director Wally, any discussion? Okay, I'll go Director Adams.
Just wondering if this is area directors only?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Director Anderson?
Yeah, I'd appreciate a staff comment on this. I just continue to be quite uncomfortable with delaying things for so long. I think we've delayed this application's public hearing for a year and a half or something now. I might be wrong on the details, but it's been a long time. And I certainly hear the concerns around this wanting to have a good in-person component to it. But we are government and we do need to move forward on these things. So I'm just asking from staff on the advisability of this and our ability to hold public hearings following all of the required protocol. And I don't know why why it wouldn't be sort of the earliest opportunity that Omicron allows or something. I just don't like it.
And I'll go to Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure I can really debate the merits of the motion, just to say that the public hearing scheduled for bylaws 94-95 has been advertised for the public. I'm not sure we'll be able to get notice in the paper in time to advise that it's being postponed and rescheduled. Having said that, it was the board's decision earlier to hold these public hearings in a particular fashion based on the public health requirements that the regional district would have to meet, and that is fine. And so that is the basis on which we proceeded with the arrangements to hold this hearing. But like I said earlier, the board needs to be aware that this has gone out to the public. And if the board chooses to pass this resolution, then we will do what we can to advise the public of the postponement, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to be totally successful in doing that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Director Abram, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to say with regard to what Tom just said about notifying the public, we do have a website and I do have a Facebook site that will have this advertised after this meeting is over with if it passes. And that will be spread to roughly 2,000 people. So it will get around very quickly today if the board chooses.
Go. Director Lee.
Yes, I agree with delaying this until the Omicron variant is becoming more clear to us as to the spread and the danger of it. And, you know, to correct Director Anderson's comment that this has dragged on a long time for the developer, it's the developer that dragged it on for 10 years and just recently reapplied. So I don't see why we have to react. We need to act responsibly with regard to the health and safety of everyone. I only just got my booster shot on Sunday, and, you know, I don't even know if it's going to be 100% effective by next week. So I'm totally in favor of protecting people from
thank you.
the Omicron.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further hands up, so I'll call question on the motion. The motion to defer until April of 2022. Anyone opposed? Carried. And your second one, Director Abram, is bylaw 432 and 433?
Yeah, and it's basically exactly the same wording.
Okay.
And except that it be, yeah, it's the same wording.
Same thing. Okay, moved by Director Abram. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Director Anderson, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. No, Devin.
Thank you very much for question.
Thank you, Director Abram. No Devin items, no closed items. Motion to terminate.
So moved.
Director Adams, Director Wally. No discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone.